But what I do know is that every successful business has got to be creating value for its customers. I will always think AI is going to be a tool, maybe the best tool, to be excellent at creating value for customers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are coming to you live from the VTEX studio, right at the heart of VTEX Day. The energy across the pavilion is absolutely insane. You can actually feel the retail world shifting right here on the floor. But before we dive into it, I want to give a shout out and a special thank you to our partner AWS for making this conversation possible. We are building the future of e-commerce on their cloud, and it's incredible to have them powering this journey with us. Now, I'm sitting here with a true legend. John, you're about to take the main stage, but before that, we have the chance to go a little bit deeper. Most people know the Whole Foods success story, but today I want to go beyond the headlines. We like to talk about the friction of building something meaningful, the real challenges of being a founder, the decisions, the setbacks, the moments that don't always make it into the keynote. Again, John, thank you so much for making the time to be here with us.
Thanks for having me.
John Mackey needs no introduction, but for a little bit of context, he's the man who took organic from a hippie niche to a global standard. After leading Whole Foods through a historic $13 billion merger with Amazon, he's back in the day zero mindset with his new venture, Love Life. He's someone who has mastered the art of staying human while scaling through technology. Starting with the first question. John, in grocery retail, the fight is over pennies. How did you build a brand so strong that a giant like Amazon prefer to buy you rather than compete against you? In today's landscape, what makes an operation indispensable?
Well, Amazon wouldn't have wanted to buy us on the very first day we went into business.
Really?
Sure, they would not have.
I would not have. Okay.
Because we were small and we didn't know anything. So when Amazon actually, when we were a public company, independent public company for 25 years. And when Amazon bought us, we'd been in business 39 years. So we had grown from one store to hundreds and hundreds of stores. And I think we were about, 16 billion in sales, I think, when they acquired us. And today Whole Foods is now probably well over 25 billion. They bought us because they didn't know anything about grocery business. I mean,
So they bought the knowledge.
They had Amazon Fresh, but it wasn't doing well. It wasn't successful. It wasn't their area of expertise. Amazon's a technology company, and they didn't really understand physical retail. And they wanted to be a player in the grocery business, and Whole Foods was all around the country, all around the United States, in almost every state. And the synergies that we were able to do with Amazon were pretty huge, like returns. One of the challenges Amazon's always had is people are dissatisfied. Do they have to package it up, go down to the post office? Amazon prides itself on being convenient. Here they can just go into a Whole Foods market and drop off the return, and then it's done. So we gave them a strong platform in the grocery business to build on. And so I think that's why they wanted to do the deal.
So they bought knowledge, they know how.
They bought knowledge, expertise. We had already made a lot of mistakes they didn't have to make.
So now I want to go back to 1981. A massive flood in Austin wipes out pretty much your whole entire inventory. You're broke, you have no insurance, and most people would have quit. Looking back, what was your biggest lesson from that moment?
Yeah, we had opened up, we'd had a smaller store called Saferway. We opened up in 1978. And then in 1980, we opened up our first large store. But it was built in a 100-year flood zone, which means the store was flooded about once every 100 years. Unfortunately for us, it flooded in the very first year. And that was the worst flood Austin had had in over 70 years. Wow. So we had 9 feet of water in the store. We were bankrupt. It wasn't clear we would be able to survive it. And I think the big takeaway lesson is that we survived. We didn't have the words for stakeholders back then. I don't think that word had been invented yet. But that's really what saved us. Our customers came, they loved us. They came and helped clean up the store. They held a benefit for us to raise money so we could get back open again. Our team members worked for free until we could get open again. And we paid them once we could get open, but we weren't sure we could get open. Our investors put in more capital. Our suppliers funded us more inventory on credit. The bank loaned us more money on my signature, which was worthless. We were saved by our constituencies. We were saved by our stakeholders. And that's when I really began to first see how interdependent business is. It's very dependent on its customers, obviously, its employees, its suppliers, the community that it's part of, its investors. All of them care about the business and they wouldn't let us die. That was my big takeaway.
How did you get, you call them stakeholders, but how did you get the community, which is like your employees and everybody else, to get so attached to your company at that time? What made you so different?
I think it was because Whole Foods was selling foods that nobody else was selling. So we were unique, and we were, it was a supermarket that just tried to sell natural and organic foods to be as healthy choices as possible. Nobody else was really doing that in Texas at that time, and hardly anybody in the country was doing it. So, but we were also very customer oriented, very focused on service. I just think people, they loved us. They didn't want us to die, and they didn't. They didn't let us die.
That would also go, for example, the producers. That because Whole Foods is famous for having a network of local suppliers and producers. That's actually the next question, so it's a good switch. Whole Foods has a huge local network of local producers, and the models, it relies on trust, decentralization, and coordination at scale, which is far from trivial. What was the hardest and best parts about letting go of central control to allow that kind of decentralization to actually work?
I think the decentralization question, because almost every company is a combination of the two. It's just where you're putting your primary emphasis. Is it mostly a centralized top-down control, or is it more an empowered bottom-up approach? And Whole Foods from the beginning was more decentralized, because as you open up stores, each store was more like a custom home, because we were learning so much. We didn't have like a prototype store. We just replicated over and over and over again. So we were constantly experimenting and innovating. And that's the great advantage of decentralization. You get more creativity from more people. You have more failures, but you have more trials. And then the successful ones can be copied and duplicated and then scaled. And so centralization is more efficient. It cuts out the mistakes and the waste, but it's not as creative as an innovative, because you have fewer people doing the innovation. Whole Foods had a lot of people innovating. People in every one of our stores were empowered to try new things. And then we study the ones that succeed. If they failed, then that's okay. We stopped doing it. But if it was successful, we'd want other stores to adopt it, and then they could iterate on it. So Whole Foods was incredibly innovative. That's what you get from decentralization. The trade-off is you're a little bit less efficient. Now, today, Whole Foods has moved away from so much decentralization. It's become more centralized in order to lower its cost, in order to make it more profitable.
So they're looking more about efficiency right
more
now.
Efficiency, but it's also less creative.
Less creative. It's funny. One of the podcasts that I first heard our CEO Mariano talk about, he was saying the way they were seeing the expansion of VTEX outside of Brazil and Latin America, and there was this one phrase that kind of attaches to what you just said, which is be global by being local, which is you keep the core of VTEX, but you adapt the way you sell, the way you give support to your customer to a more local culture, which is kind of the way we do things.
That's the way Whole Foods did it. I mean, in a sense, every one of our stores was different. and we would tailor the store to the market we were going into. So Berkeley, California, for example, is a very different market than, say, Dallas, Texas. Stores need to look different. They need to have a different level of different kinds of services, different products. People don't exactly eat completely the same all around the country. So
100%.
you tailor your product mix to the market as you found it.
We were talking a lot about, in general, human connections. We talked about it before with when the flood destroyed your inventory. You built your career around human curation and trust. Now, with AI transforming retail and decision making, do you believe technology can replicate the curator's eye, or should it remain just a tool for efficiency?
I mean, that's a great question. I obviously don't know the answer because AI is evolving so rapidly. Its capabilities today are a lot greater than they were 2 years ago. So I don't know where the sky is the limit, so to speak. But what I do know is that every business, every successful business has got to be creating value for its customers. And I will always think AI is going to be a tool, maybe the best tool, to be excellent at creating value for customers. And that's going to be an ever-evolving target and change. And so I think it's not an either-or situation. It's clearly going to be both. And I just don't know the relative mix because I don't know how AI is going to evolve over time. I have a feeling it's going to take a bigger and bigger and bigger chunk as we learn to integrate it into everything, right?
Yeah, our daily lives as well.
I mean,
I'm
getting in the habit in my own life to, I used to mostly use Grok, and I'm always asking it questions every day. I'm running things by it. I'm getting its opinion. I find it's not always right. I mean, it's sometimes you need to check it out, but over time it's going to become more and more right. In addition, it's partly about just changing my own thinking to make AI more and more useful for me personally and in my business. And so I'm in my new business, Love Life's, is a longevity center, holistic health center. And what we're discovering is AI is very capable of making a lot of good health and wellness suggestions to people. It's smarter than most of the doctors already.
Really?
Yes, exactly. In fact, I don't think anybody should simply listen to a doctor for health advice. I would check everything out. Everything the doctor says, I check out with AI.
Double check it on with AI.
Check it with
Makes
AI.
sense.
Yeah.
It probably has a lot of more sources of information than most doctors. Here at VTEX, we've switched a couple of years ago to what we call an AI native approach, which means that everything we do, be it product or even be it me, I work in sales. We first think, how can we do it with AI? So I see AI at least as a way where it can improve and make us more precise, but there's still going to be a human touch in the sense that we're looking now at solutions that, for example, can process an order that normally would take like 10 to 15 minutes if the salesman had to do it with a computer. Now with VTEX CX platform, even if it's an audio note on WhatsApp, which is 97% market penetration here in Brazil, they can actually record, translate that audio into a quote and send it to the customer in less than 2 minutes. So it makes the salesman more efficient and he can focus on what are the human tasks that you wanted to do, which is relation, which is trust.
That's today, but will it be that way in 5 years? It's hard to say. That's what I'm trying to say is we don't exactly know how AI is going to continue to evolve.
100%.
Because what it can't do today, it might be able to do tomorrow.
100%. And that's the way we look at it. How do we keep the human still in the center of the relations? Going to a little bit of history, the Amazon acquisition was one of the largest M&As in retail history. Many purists said that Whole Foods will lose its soul. We're just talking about AI now, and we talked about decentralization. As the leader in the room, how did you ensure that the brand's core values survived the integration? And did they?
That's a great question. As the co-founder of Whole Foods, and I was CEO for 44 years, Whole Foods is like my daughter. And my joke is that I kind of like married my daughter to the richest man in the world. And even though Elon Musk passed up Jeff Bezos, at that time, Jeff was the richest guy. And Whole Foods has a very powerful culture in its own right. I mean, we were a Fortune 250 company doing 16 billion in sales, now over 25 billion. When Amazon acquired us, we had 90,000 team members, and now it's got, I don't know, 125,000 team members.
Wow.
So, and that culture, Whole Foods is an older company than Amazon is. We were started 15 years before Amazon started. And so, in a sense, our culture has been evolving longer. Now, Amazon, I sometimes do an analogy or metaphor. Amazon's like this powerful sun that Whole Foods is now orbiting around. And so the gravitational pull of that sun is very powerful. We cannot escape the gravitational pull of Amazon. We're part of it now. We're part of their solar system. On the other hand, we're pretty big. We're like Jupiter. So
that's a good analogy.
So we have our own distinct culture. Amazon's influencing that culture. And to a lesser degree, Whole Foods has some influence on Amazon, has a gravitational pull itself. But one of the things that we did to try to help ensure our culture would not be totally swallowed up into a black hole, using my space metaphor here, is we started to certify our team members as cultural champions. We like doubled down and then tripled down on our culture. We wanted to make sure everybody understood what our purpose was, what our core values are, what our leadership principles are, and how it's different than Amazon. And people would get certified in that. And I think now we've had over 50,000 people be certified as cultural champions at Whole Foods. So Whole Foods is very proud of its uniqueness and its own identity. And Amazon, to their credit, has not tried to force Whole Foods to adopt everything Amazon does. Where it makes sense to adopt things Amazon does, we do. But they've been a good company to work with. That's why I wanted to do the deal in the first place. I thought when I first met with their leadership, I got very excited about all the things that we could do together, the synergies that we talked about. Amazon, for example, really helped Whole Foods drop prices. We needed to get cheaper in the marketplace. It was more of that they had the patience to let us. The market had begun to. We weren't so unique any longer. We had people copying our product mix. And so we needed to become more competitive price-wise, hence a little more centralization, but also the patience. If as a public company, we could not easily lower our prices without the stock market going crazy. Amazon was willing to be patient to allow that to happen. And so it's an ongoing dance. But I do think Whole Foods is not exactly the same thing as Amazon. And we took very seriously our culture as unique and special and something we really care about. And Amazon, to its credit, has allowed Whole Foods to be Whole Foods.
That's a very mature position for Amazon to understand that the core values of Whole Foods is what makes it.
I think the senior leadership of Amazon always understood it. Middle management, a little bit tougher sell.
Okay. If you were to build Whole Foods from scratch today in the AI era, what would you do differently?
You may have to, I might have to flesh out that question a little bit because AI wouldn't build Whole Foods today. It's already been built. So what we did initially when I said people loved us because they couldn't get our products anywhere else, that's really no longer true. We are still specialized, but we are not utterly unique as we used to be. So there's so much more competition. I would not start a Whole Foods Market startup now. We'd be crushed. We couldn't compete. We wouldn't have any scale. We didn't need scale in the early days, but now you need it.
That's an incredible insight, actually, because it's. I mean, I visit the States at least like twice a year.
And I started another business where I don't think what we're doing is pretty unique. What Love Life's doing, and I think any entrepreneur you have to see a niche. You have to see an area where value is not being adequately created, a hole in the marketplace, so to speak, that you can fill. I don't think Whole Foods has filled this marketplace need, and there are lots of copy imitators now. So I wouldn't start it over again. But your question is more about in an era of AI, it's a fair question. How would you start any business in an era of AI? Well, you'd use AI in everything that you're doing. For example, one of the things we're trying to do at Love Life, working with AI, is people don't realize that we have so many different ways to find out how healthy people are and how fit they are. There's so many tests we can do. Most people don't have any idea if they're healthy or not. We have a plumber's model of health. When do you hire a plumber? When your pipes break. That's when people mostly go see a doctor. But a better way to think about it is that we're all on a health continuum. We're all on a health journey. And through doing a lot of testing, we can find out, are you heading for a heart attack? Are you going to be getting cancer in 10 years? We have the technology to discover that now. And then working with AI, we can begin to track people. We can calculate their biological age for them versus their chronological age. We can give them a heart health score, a brain health score, a gut health score. And more importantly, we can work with them with wearables like Apple Watch and Oura Rings and other ways we can do daily tracking. We can help them make progress. So imagine you're one of our members. We do a workup for you on basically find how healthy you are. And then it's like, hey, let's extend your health span. Let's extend your lifespan. Let's make it so you don't have a heart attack when you turn 50. Let's make sure you don't get cancer till you're over 100 years old. This is where the world's going to evolve. It's not there yet. And this is a niche that I feel like Love Life can help fill.
The company is not, but the awareness today is a lot more. It's a really good niche.
More, but people don't, and this is another where AI can be helped. AI can be that health coach.
Yeah.
Once you have the data, and we'll begin to be able to track people. I think AI is going to be something integrated into our bodies, either through wearables or, I don't know. It might even be something you do implants on, and it'll be with us all the time. It'll be saying like, John, I just noticed your blood pressure has increased 25 points. Let's do some deep breathing here and relax. What are you so excited about? So I think we're going to have that kind of AI coaching that's going to help us extend life and our health decades over time.
That what I meant is that today, I think it's a really good time for this type of company, because nowadays people that, for example, like me, I'm in my 40s. I am a lot more, not aware, but I'm a lot more worried about my health choices, what I do. And I think people in general, especially here in Brazil, there's a whole market which is growing about supplements and stuff like that. But there's nothing that, like you just described, it's an incredible idea.
Well, people are more conscious, but that doesn't necessarily mean they know what to do.
No, they don't. That's what I meant to say. That's why I think the idea is great, because most of the time it's, it's
well, yeah, get stuff on the internet, and you can find anything in the world on the internet.
It's too much information for health.
It's too much information, and the AI can help sort through some of that.
That's great. That's very true. Going to a more personal question. Is it true that your mother did not approve and in fact never approved of your work with the food retail business?
Yeah, that's true. I went to college for 6 years and have 120 hours of electives, but no degree. And I really went to college to learn as much as I could, and I did. And but only the things I was interested in, which didn't necessarily.
Steve Jobs is a similar story, right?
What's that?
Steve Jobs is a similar story where you only took classes for like typography.
There's lots. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Michael Dell. There's lots of stories of entrepreneurs who went to really good colleges, took classes, but they just did what they wanted to do. I was in that category.
That's a nice category to be in.
Well,
for entrepreneurs, I mean,
I'm a little bit further behind those other guys. Anyhow, my mother wanted me to be a professional. She wanted me to be a doctor.
Okay.
Her father was a doctor. I was named after him. Her fantasy was I was going to be a doctor. If not a doctor, maybe a lawyer. If not that, go get an MBA. Be respectable. And instead I was a grocer. So she saw that. She saw me as a disappointment, a downwardly mobile. And so the last time I ever saw my mother was actually on her deathbed. This was way back in 1987. And she'd had a stroke. We didn't have we didn't have AI back then, and we didn't know what we know today. So she died at age 64 from another stroke. The last time I ever saw her, she begged me, John, would you do a promise for your dying mother? Promise me you'll go back to school and give up this stupid grocery dream. You know, I've seen all your IQ tests. We know your aptitude. You could be anything you want to be. Don't be a grocer. You just don't do it. Promise me you'll change. I wouldn't do it because I'm not going back to school, Mom. I'm going to build this great company. You'll see. And I'm not just a grocer. I'm a business guy. And we're growing and it's going to be fantastic. And so she died very disappointed that her son, I look back now and I wish I'd just kind of lied and made a promise to her that I didn't intend to keep, but she would have died not feeling like her eldest son was a failure in life. So she really thought us. Fortunately, my dad lived long enough to see
the success.
Yeah,
but you still, I think one of the most amazing things is just that when I think about Whole Foods is that what we kind of discussed in the first questions, you built such a caring company. Like you feel cared for as a customer when you visit. And I imagine Love Life has the same interest. Obviously, there's a question about being a business, but it seems like you always choose niches where there's a thing about wellness, about general wellness.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think the most important thing in life is?
To me, I'm going to say a sentiment, which is love.
Exactly. You get an A+. That is the most important thing in life is love. Because I promise you, on your deathbed, you won't be thinking, I wish I'd made more money. I wish I'd worked harder. You'll be thinking about, gosh, I wish my mother had, I wish I'd been able to have a minor regret that I didn't do more with my mother on that deathbed. Or that my first marriage broke up. I wish I could have handled that better. So you'll be thinking about relationships, because that's what really matters the most in life. And love is what's most important. So I got that about Whole Foods Market. I actually tried to build love into the culture. And you can do that. It starts with the leader, him or herself, being a loving, caring person that cares about the people that work there, that doesn't just see them as cogs in the machine, but as living, breathing human beings who have value, who have self-esteem needs that need to be met, who need to belong to an organization that cares about them. I found out that the two things that are most important in a job and in life, first is purpose and second is love. If you give people that in the workplace, that their work is helping other people and making a difference, and you give them a sense that they are important and that you care about them, that their well-being matters, they'll work with you forever. Why would they want to leave? You're giving them the most important things in life, purpose and love. And that's the type of culture we created at Whole Foods, one based on purpose and love.
That's very deep. Thank you so much for that contribution. It's something that I truly believe in about making. That's why I like VTEX so much.
Does VTEX have a more caring culture?
A lot.
Okay, wonderful. That's one reason maybe you're so successful.
Probably. We go to the office with happiness. We go to the office caring about each other. It's a company that strives to make sure that each one, even if it's an individual contributor, is as generous as it can be. One instruction that Mariano gives us before VTEX Day is be kind, help anybody. So when you're at VTEX Day, you need to make sure that people feel the same love that we have within the same company. And that's why I think...
But you know what the next step is? Make every day a VTEX Day.
That's you're going to have a great conversation with Mariano. He's going to really like that. The next question I wanted to ask you is, talking about love now, it has to do with love. When you sold, Whole Foods was profitable. It was your company. Like you said, your baby. Why did you sell?
Why did we sell?
Why then?
Well, because I would say it's because there's a slight flaw in American capitalism. We were being, they were trying to take over our company. The shareholder activists were. And these were people that they weren't based on purpose or love. They were strictly about money. And when I met with their leadership, the private equity guys, they told me, they showed me this slide deck, and it had a lot of things that were false in the slide deck. This is what they were showing Wall Street investors in our business. I said, there's a lot of mistakes there. Can I have a copy of that so I could give you some feedback about what's wrong with that? He said, no, you can't. We're not going to give it to you. Why not? Well, we don't want to. And I said, okay, well, let's figure out a way we can work together to create more value for our shareholders. We had that in common, right? No, we don't want to work with you. And I said, you don't want to work with us? He says, no. Here, listen, Mackey, here's what's going to happen. We're going to take over your board of directors first. And after that, we're going to fire you. And then we're going to fire anybody in your leadership team that doesn't do exactly what we tell them to do. And then we're just going to put the company up for bid and sell it for whatever the highest bidder is. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And walked out. So we had to decide whether we were going to fight them to the bitter end and whether we could win or not, whether we could find a friendly buyer, like we tried to get Warren Buffett to possibly buy the company.
Wow.
He made a joke about it, which was, I own Dairy Queen and I'm famous for my junk food eating habits. I don't think Whole Foods is a good brand fit. And I really think what was trying to happen, they wanted us to go private. I'm not going to, in my book, The Whole Story, I hint very strongly that there was, I believe, a conspiracy to try to get Whole Foods to go private. But the private equity guys would have gotten control of it, cleaned up some stuff and then taken it back, put a lot of debt on the balance sheet and then take it public again. I thought that was a very risky strategy and one that I thought might blow up. So when we looked at merging with Albertsons was interested in buying us, a large supermarket company, Amazon was our best solution. I'll always wonder what would have happened if we'd fought. Could we have won? Maybe so. But I went and met with Amazon. I was so impressed with them. I was so impressed with Jeff Bezos personally. He was one of my personal heroes. But his whole leadership team we met with were super smart guys. They weren't Wall Street guys. They were down to earth, super smart. We spent like 2 to 3 hours talking about what we could do together if we worked together. They had the technology side and we had the grocery knowledge and how the partnership could be and the synergies we could create. And I knew Whole Foods needed to drop its prices. That was going to be very difficult for us to do as a public company with shareholder activists going after us. Amazon said, we'll let you drop prices. And we dropped prices 4 times in the first 2 years. We very seldom hear anything about Whole Paycheck any longer. Whole Foods is far more price competitive due to Amazon than we were. Also, they raised the pay of everybody in our company. We went back in 2017, they raised the minimum wage to $15, and that ratcheted everybody else up accordingly. So that cost them hundreds of millions of dollars in wages, hundreds of millions of dollars in lower prices. They were very long-term oriented. So it was a win-win for all of our stakeholders. Our customers benefited with lower prices. Our team members got higher pay. Our suppliers got new outlets into Amazon.com and Amazon Fresh that they didn't have before. Our investors got a 30% premium. I would rather have stayed independent. But Amazon was a very, very good solution. And if we had fought and lost, our company would have been carved up. The culture would have been decimated. And the whole dream would have just come crashing down.
So you kind of sent off the baby to college.
That's right. Exactly.
How did you feel that day when it happened?
When we sold it?
Yeah.
Bittersweet.
Money was good.
It's a little bit like, how does a father feel when his daughter gets married? I mean, she's left home, but he's happy for her. He's happy for the children, the grandchildren they might have, but it's a milestone you go through. And so I was bittersweet. I stayed on, right? I worked there for 5 years. I didn't just leave. I stayed, I signed a 5-year contract. I stayed on. I did everything I could on the culture side, as you say. And, but honeymoon ended. I had a lot of disagreements with Amazon. I fought with Amazon a lot about the culture. And mostly I lost those fights. So there came a time when I knew it was time for me to go.
Talking about courageous decisions, What was the single most courageous decision of your career? And knowing that what you know today about the impact of technology on consumption, would you still make that same call?
Well, there are actually two decisions came to mind when you asked that question, and they're a little bit different.
Yeah.
Probably the hardest thing I ever did was I fired my father from the board of directors. Yeah. And he had been my mentor from when I was 24 and working on the company to get it started until I turned 40. But Whole Foods had gone public the year before, and we were starting to make acquisitions. And my dad, we were fighting a lot. It was increasingly got much more conservative. And I thought at the time it was because he just didn't want us to lose money because a lot of his net worth was tied up into Whole Foods. But after I asked him to leave, just about a year or so later, he got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So our fighting was really, he was having early signs of Alzheimer's. We just didn't know it because one of the things you have is a lot of emotional outbursts. My dad was increasingly irrational. So that was the most difficult decision I ever did, was firing him. It took me a long time to work up the courage to do that. And it hurt him a lot, although it all worked out in the end. He said I made the right decision. Yeah. From a business standpoint, the hardest decision I made that had nothing to do with him was when we decided to leave Texas and go to California. That's 3,000 miles away. That's like, being in Brazil and jumping to New York.
Yeah, it's probably about it.
And we were kind of betting the company on it, but I was so sure that what we were doing was going to work there because no one was doing what we were doing. And I thought the Bay Area was going to be a huge success for us, better than we were going to be in
Texas.
Because
of proximity to that culture of wellness and well-being. Was that it? Or
the consciousness in the Bay Area is very high about wellness, health, healthy eating, natural and organic foods. They had plenty of natural and organic food stores. They just didn't have any supermarkets.
Okay.
They didn't have anybody like Whole Foods Market. And I wanted to get there first and get our flag up there. So that was a difficult decision to make. We went to Palo Alto first, then Berkeley, then Mill Valley, then San Francisco. Every one of those locations was hugely successful. Now, I think we've got, 60 stores in the Bay Area. So it's one of our most successful markets.
To close the podcast, John, if you could leave this audience with just one idea to carry forward into the future of business, what would that be?
If they're running a business or
if they're running a business, or if they are thinking about running a business.
The most important thing you can do, and ultimately the purpose of every business, one way or another, is to create value for customers. That's why a business exists. And you should think every single day, how can we create more value for our customers? What can we do differently? What can we learn from our competitors? And if you can do that, you'll be successful, because most businesses stop creating value for customers. They start to think about, how do we just make more money? Money comes as a result of creating value for customers. Don't put the horse before the car. Don't put the cart before the horse. Focus on that value creation. Never stop doing it, and your business will continue to flourish. I'm sure VTEX is doing that. That's one reason it's growing like exponentially.
John, we've talked about passion, about a business. We talked about the past. Talked about the acquisition by Amazon. Thank you so much for being here with us. It was an incredible pleasure and honor for me. And again, thank you to AWS for making this possible.
AWS, that's Amazon.
That's true. Thank you.